Thank you for joining us on Nigeria Tonight. My name is Felicity Ezewike. Our coverage begins in the nation's capital, where the Nigeria Labour Congress has declared a two-day nationwide protest on the 27th and 28th of February. The union, while speaking to Newsmade in Abuja, says that government has consistently refused to keep to agreements it made with the union, thus the need to protect Nigerian workers. Marvelous Oboman reports.
With Nigeria's inflation rate currently on the rise, many workers say the last few months have been difficult to cope. Nigeria's organized labor in a State of the Nation press conference in Abuja says government has continued to pay lip service to the plight of Nigerian workers.
NEC unanimously noted its deep disappointment and condemned the actions of the federal government in refusing to implement the agreements and reached the following decisions. That it stands on the ratify the 14-day ultimatum issued to the federal government within which to implement the agreement and address the mounting crisis of survival by Nigerians. That the notice expires on the midnight of Thursday, the 22nd day of February 2024. That if on the expiration Congress is not satisfied with government's compliance with the conditions of the notice, Congress will be at liberty to take action that will compel government to implement the agreement.
The union says it has declared a two-day nationwide protest on the 27th and 28th of February and called on other affiliate union members to join the protest.
NEC in session declares a two-day national protest on 27th and 28th of February to demonstrate outrage on the mounting hardship and insecurity around the nation. If our demands are not met after the nationwide protest, to issue a 7-day notice that will expire on the 2nd day of March 2024 to the federal government, after which an indefinite nationwide strike will ensure.
When asked about the purported 1 million naira minimum wage, the NLC president said as far as the naira keeps depreciating, even the amount will be insignificant for a Nigerian worker. He says the government should make the review yearly to capture the current realities affecting workers.
If the Nigeria naira continues to depreciate, 1 million naira will be a child's play to the minimum wage. As of today, we are talking of about 1,500, 1,600. So if it continues that way, 1 million naira will be too small for the worker. And the minimum wage, we're going to insist for the review to be annual. Or else if you collect any money and the value of the currency is changing per hour, it will not make any sense, and it will be illogical, to return that amount for the next 4 or 5 years.
Many Nigerians will be hoping that the federal government will do all it can to resolve this issue before the ultimatum expires. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima met with 36 state governors and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, at the State House in Abuja. The meeting was necessitated by the rising price of food items, insecurity, delayed and non-payment of salaries, gratuities owed workers, retirees and pensioners, among other issues. On the rising cost of food, the President advised against the idea of food importation and price control when local food producers should be encouraged to produce more food. Although the President has directed his economic team, including all relevant officials in the government, to find a way to ameliorate the situation, the Special Presidential Committee on Emergency has been given approval to make available about 102,000 metric tons of assorted items, including rice, maize, millet, among others. To discuss this, I'm joined by Public Affairs Analyst Ahmed Husaini. Thank you very much, Ahmed, for giving us your time. Let's just establish your position. Do you share the federal government's confidence that Nigeria can not only feed herself, but also export produce to other countries?
All right, thank you. I think so. There are two things here. The fact that Nigeria has the ability to produce enough food to export to the international market does not guarantee that food products are going to be cheaper in Nigeria, that are going to be sold domestically cheaper. Because if you look at the way things are going, if our producers can actually earn more money by exporting food produce outside the country, then they're going to export the bulk of what they produce, and then there will be scarcity at home, and that will actually drive the prices of food higher. So this the whole thing is the demand and supply effects of food prices is not just local, it is global. As long as there are higher prices internationally, then locally those prices are going to also increase, whether we produce enough or we don't. So that's one. And then secondly, then there's the issue of what government can do in terms of cushioning the effect of food inflation domestically. And I want to give us an example that usually what the government should have done, the government has actually grain reserves, silos scattered across various states, in the country. Some of those have like 25,000 ton capacity. Most of them have that capacity. So the idea for the government now to control the price is actually for the government now to mop up, domestic production immediately after harvest by giving farmers guaranteed pricing. They say, okay, fine. Maybe immediately after harvest, the government can decide to say, okay, we're going to mop up the surplus in the market and then keep them in our reserve, so that thereafter, when the price now appreciates globally, and then there is, the threat of food inflation domestically, then the government can actually free those reserves. But now we have reserves that are empty. The government is not actually ready for this crisis. Government is not prepared. It's not prepared for this. And in some of those instances, the money has been, the government has been budgeting, funds to actually fill up those reserves, but the money is either being squandered or the reserves are not actually fully, filled up. So most of the reserves are empty, and the government now has lost the capability to unilaterally, affect, food pricing, through, free.
Okay, so I think the other day there was a discountenance to the suggestion that the federal government should regulate the prices of commodities, because that would be a Herculean task. But then you were saying again that the government is not prepared. They have not done a lot of storage. How come then the Special Presidential Committee on Emergency is supposed to release over 100,000 metric tons of assorted items, including rice, maize, millet, and others, to the country, to citizens?
So 100,000 metric tons is actually very insignificant, to take up the heat, in the medium or even in the short term. So what we are saying is we have much, capacity in millions of metric tons.
If this release won't do much, then to what end is the government offering that quantity? Is it just to placate people, to let them feel that something is being done, or there is some level of amelioration that can come from this release?
Yeah, so actually, I believe the government actually has to, introduce some drastic measures in order to, some desperate measures in order to, curtail the effect of this, of this hike in food prices nationwide. Because if we don't do that, we would be dealing with a very serious emergency. And one of those, arguments is, if the government does not have enough reserves locally in order to, bring down the price of food items, domestically, then the government must actually adopt some measures that will either importing, some of those food items in order to crash the prices and then stabilize, the quality, stabilize, the environment, so that at least then we can think of, okay, what measures are we going to adopt in the medium and long term? But right now we need we're dealing with a very desperate situation, and as the saying goes, desperate situations actually demand desperate measures. So we need to actually think about importing, food in order to, crash the price of food items in the market, and then see how we can stabilize the situation. Then before we can think of what to do.
All right, Ahmed, thank you very much for speaking with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
We'll bring you more stories from across the state shortly, but first, let's tell you that the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners have threatened to embark on a nationwide strike over what they described as high operational costs engineered by rising inflation rates in the country. NATO, the umbrella body of all commercial transport owners and operators in Nigeria that are engaged in the business of moving goods, passengers and petroleum products from one place to another throughout the country and in the West Africa sub-region. President of the association, Yusuf Uthman, said his members could no longer meet up with the delivery of petroleum products as operational costs currently outweigh earnings. He explained that what marketers currently pay NATO members to load and deliver one truck could no longer meet up with the delivery of petroleum products as operational costs currently outweigh earnings. He explained that what marketers currently pay NATO members to load and deliver one truck of 40,000 liters of petroleum product is 1,320 naira per trip, while actual expenses sit at 1,285 1,285,000, I beg your pardon, per trip. Frontiers for Democracy, an advocacy organization committed to promoting democratic principles and good governance, is calling for support for a transition to parliamentary system of government in Nigeria. The call is coming on the heels of the introduction of 3 bills sponsored by 60 members of the House of Representatives seeking the alteration of the Constitution for a transition to parliamentary system. The group said its call was aimed at enhancing accountability, inclusivity, and stability in the country's governance structure. The group said by adopting a parliamentary system, Nigeria could achieve several benefits, including enhanced accountability, efficient oversight, reduced risk of corruption and unchecked powers, inclusivity and representation, flexibility and responsiveness, and stable governance. To discuss this, I'm joined by political analyst Henry Olonimowo. Thank you very much, Henry, for joining us.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
This group is, it's clearly they were inspired by the call by some reps members. But the question is Nigeria ready for a transition to parliamentary system of government? And is this a good time for the call to echo?
Yes, thank you very much. It's always in order in a democracy to allow debates and freedom of expression. And I think the group in the National Assembly proposing the parliamentary system of government have clearly stated in their address that they feel this is a debate that should be engaged all across the nation. So it's one thing for you to be proposed as an idea, it's another for you to be implemented. But looking at the parliamentary system of government, I do not think we are where it suits our type of politics and the way the nation is wired. Even though the proponents for a parliamentary system of government will tell you that it saves costs and the rest, but I look at our present National Assembly, and if you look at the build-up or the makeup of some of the individuals who have National Assembly, many of them don't look like parliamentarians. Some of them look more like executive people who are from the executive arm of government, and it speaks a lot because you see that in recent times, we've had former governors who are coming into the National Assembly because if you look at the UK's parliamentary system of government, you can clearly see that the Prime Minister is a part of the parliamentary system. The cabinet ruling the state is also a part of the legislature. And if you have that happen in the country, there might be a bit of instability because if you look at the UK in the last 5-6 years, they've had about four prime ministers, from Gordon Brown to Liz Truss, and there's Rishi Sunak who is there right now. If that happens in our own country, We might be having maybe one president, one prime minister every 2 years or even lesser. Because once the prime minister loses public confidence or vote of confidence amongst his peers and in the legislature, it could be unseated, the cabinet could be dissolved, and another. So it could bring a bit of instability back into our polity, and I do not think that it fits us. One more thing again, the level of debating that happens in the parliament system, I'm not sure that the parliamentarians we have now probably are up to it, and it's not in any way offensive. I feel that if you look at the executive that we have today, these are people who move in the paraphernalia of the office, who rarely even want to come out to be questioned. Imagine that these kinds of people are in the parliamentary session. How many of them will be able to ventilate their ideas, defend their ideas, allow it to be debated rigorously? So I do not think that we have the political makeup to withstand the parliamentary system at this time.
What worries me about your submission is that 60 House of Reps members believe otherwise. This group that is coming up to talk about it says that the purpose of parliamentary system is to enhance accountability and all other issues that was raised. And you're raising more pertinent issues to consider. Why do you think this group of people think this is the time for us to begin to talk about parliamentary system, knowing the unique nature of our polity?
Yes. Again, you must also understand the complexity of our political our polity in the country. Is that there are also people who like to go through this merry-go-round of a thing to cause a bit of distraction or a diversion. I think more importantly, if you're looking at low-hanging fruits for restructuring, issues like state policing, issues like how do we make our electoral system much more accountable. I think these are things we should be looking into, rather than, again, talking about switching the government system. Again, I must say also, we have seen all across the world, we have seen monarchy rule still serve the people, right? We have seen China, a communist state, one-party system, and because the living standard of these people is better, is fine. We have seen military dictatorships serve their people well. So I do not think particularly that our problem is a problem of the system of government. I think our problem is a problem of the kind of people who find themselves at the end of our years. And if we do not restructure the kinds of people, the minds of the kinds of people who administer governance in this country, even if we go back to monarchy rule and we go back to the other things that we see all around, it will not still change us. So I would see it as a bit of a distraction. We should be talking about the real issues here. Resource control. These are things that I think we should be looking into, rather than just saying we want to switch all over the parliamentary system of government.
But I mean, we copied democracy from someplace. Now they're saying we should copy parliamentary system because it seems to be working in other climes. Is there a scenario in your mind that parliamentary system can function in Nigeria, even with our many issues?
You know, let me give instances. By the time this government was taken off 29th of May, and they were sending in the ministerial nominees, you see the way many of the ministers were told to take a bow and then just go. In the private system of government, it's more rigorous than that. You see our president. When was the last time you had the president come to the National Assembly to answer questions on accountability? The only time the president steps in the National Assembly is when he wants to present the budget. And once he presents it, that's all. Maybe one day we'll have a president who will not even come to the National Assembly to present the budget and just have somebody to represent him. And you know, the parliamentary system will then dictate that the head of government must be in the parliamentary system. You need to see the way the UK parliamentarians question their prime minister. You need to see the way, because they are equals. Yeah, they treat him as first among equals. And you need to see the way they drilling on issues or matters of state. But you look at the executive that we have, and even some ministers do not believe they can be summoned by the National Assembly today. So these are the kind of people that will be voting in again to come.
When you also have governors, elected governors, who tell you to listen to the previous government, before you listen to them. I mean, these are people that transition to the National Assembly. I guess we have to leave it there for now. More to talk about subsequently. Thank you very much for speaking with us, Henry.
Thank you very much.
Survivors of conflict, victims, and de-radicalized women in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, are demanding economic empowerment and an end to discriminatory practices. The peace-building initiative that brought together all the actors and mediators was organized by the Alamein Foundation for Peace and Development in Maiduguri. News Centre's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Ali Abdu Bolori was once a successful businessman in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. The 64-year-old lost one of his wives and became crippled at the peak of the insurgency. Ali narrated his ordeal and experiences of starting life afresh.
Ba laifi mun yafe musu, mu da kanmu mun yi ma Ubangiji laifi, in ba a yafiya ba zai yafe muna ba. Ki duk wannan fitintunin samarin nan in suna da aiki ba zai taso ba kwata-kwata. Rashin aikin nan shine masifa.
While many stories of such are left untold, survivors, victims and some de-radicalized women shared their stories, highlighting the challenges they have endured and the need for support to rebuild their lives.
Since 2011, my son was arrested. I want to see my son. We want justice.
They emphasize the importance of inclusive and sustainable economic empowerment programs that provide opportunities for financial independence.
It's a plus to Borno State that there is a documented requirement by these groups of vulnerable women and girls on their specific needs to every stakeholder, so that collectively, what are we doing? We are all doing to complement, trying and then struggling to complement what the government is doing.
Among the demands were requests for skills training, access to microfinance programs, and mentorship initiatives to help them establish their own businesses and secure a better future for themselves and their families.
To ensure that this does not happen again, and there is a critical emphasis, please ensure that justice is done to everybody irrespective of differences.
Borno State government revealed that over 6,900 of the de-radicalized insurgents have been successfully reintegrated into the society.
All we need to do is to strengthen the collaboration and be accessible to every organization, so that, as His Excellency has always said, this issue of peace and security is not a one-man or only a government show.
The peace-building journey might be rough and tough, but the collective effort and support is said to spring better and egalitarian society. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Let's make one last stop in Edo State with my colleague Bernard Akede, who is on the ground to monitor the primary elections of the All Progressive Congress. Information reaching us is that Osagye Izeyamu has quit the race. He has tried this 4 times. That means to be governor of Edo State. But what are the dynamics playing out? Bernard, if you can hear me, just go right ahead and tell us what is the reason behind this decision and what has been the reaction to this news?
Well, thank you for having me, Felicity. Now, he sent a letter to the party chairman talking about Alhaji Ganduje. And in that letter, he said for certain clear reasons, he has decided to step down. But that he is still in support of the party and that he's going to galvanize his supporters to also support whoever the party picks to fly their flag come the elections later this year. But I'd like to say that just yesterday when we got into the States, there was some kind of, and I mentioned this earlier, would I say beer parlor gist, if you like, because this was unconfirmed. But I did hear from someone saying that the party is seeking to streamline its members and reduce them. As of yesterday, there were about 12 people contesting or who intended to contest for the primaries. But now we've seen one that has dropped out. And I mentioned earlier as well that I won't be surprised, based on what I heard yesterday, I won't be surprised if we get to hear another person or some more people also drop off so that support can be streamlined and focused on just a few people.
just so that the party feels stronger when the eventual election comes. Remember, we saw this in the presidential primaries, still under the APC, where on the day of the primaries, some candidates stepped out of the race and galvanized their support for the person who eventually won, talking about the president we have right now. So it's not new in elections and in politics. I think people are just surprised because this particular candidate was actually a strong one based on the resume that he holds.
Okay, what sense are you getting about the politics within the APC? Is it there is a sense of unity ahead of the primaries, or you're getting a sense that they're not as united as they're supposed to be?
That's a good question. Now, Felicity, yesterday, as I mentioned, when we came into the States, we did move around Benin, the state capital, which is where we are right now. And from a few people who we spoke to, they seem to say that there are certain favorites for certain people. Somebody low-key mentioned to me that he feels that the secretary to the chief of staff to the current president has a favorite. The party chairman may have a favorite. The president himself may have a favorite candidate. So nobody could put their finger to who exactly they feel or they felt will be the #1 supported candidate that would eventually lift the party's flag. So it's kind of dicey at the moment, and all we can do is wait until tomorrow to see who exactly the party will pick. But I can tell you for sure, whoever they will pick, it will be quite an interesting person eventually. We were in Edo North earlier today. There were about 3 or 4 candidates from there, and the people could not put their finger to who they felt would be, the most supported amongst those 4. And then there are some in Edo South, and there are some in Edo Central as well. So I'm expecting that this will be an interesting run.
All right, Bernard, ahead of tomorrow, I guess the venue is, are you going to move around the state, or the election is going to happen at a particular location? How does it work? Take us through.
That it will happen. I heard that it would happen in different wards. So we'll move around certain wards and then see what information we can get from all of them. But again, it's going to be quite interesting. Benin, coincidentally, Edo State is where I come from, and it's changed from the last time I came here. So it's I expect a lot of interesting activities from the different wards that we intend to visit.
Change for good, I hope. It's been a minute. I was there as well. All right, thank you very much, Bernard, for speaking with us. We appreciate your time. All right, earlier we brought you the story that Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners have threatened to embark on a nationwide strike. To help us speak on this and expand the conversation, we're joined by oil and gas expert George Brown. George, thank you for giving us your time. It is clear that these owners didn't just wake up to make this announcement. They've made appeals for assistance, which seem not to be yielding results. What's your response to this latest threat caused by the rising costs in the country?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me. I will not call this a threat. This is a call to action. The association has just notified the public that they will be embarking on a strike on Monday, and already some tanker drivers have already pulled out already. They're no longer applying their normal routes anymore. And from all the reports that we've gathered, they have taken their time over the last couple of months in reaching out to all stakeholders in the entire value chain of the logistics subsector of the petroleum products and distribution network. And the critical stakeholders with regards to the regulatory agencies have not been able to listen to them and discuss with them. I think it's a breakdown of, an inability of dialogue to happen. And I think it's some form of veiled impunity on the part of the regulatory agencies, because what the association is actually talking about is real. What they're talking about is something that is very reasonable. And if these people that are supposedly managers of the entire value chain, they should have been able to start engaging the leadership of the association. But from all indications, they've not done that, and we're getting to this situation. Imagine the crisis that we're having in the country with regards to high cost of living, and you now have fuel scarcity in addition to it. It's like they want to ground the country to a halt.
Is that one about that? Because that was my next question. That was going to be my next question to you. Does this imply, if they go on this strike, that all economic activities will be grounded to a halt, impressing us the severity of this decision by this group?
Okay, now this is the way it is. The major reason why we're having all these issues in the country with regards to the economy is basically because of the removal of the petroleum subsidy, the petroleum product subsidy. That is what has led us to this point. Of course, with the other resultant effect of the fluctuating or increase in the dollar to the naira exchange rate. And you know that the petroleum products are imported. That's diesel, kerosene, and PMS, and also LPG. Even though LPG is produced locally in the country, the companies that produce this, the gas producers in the country primarily have contracts, and the contracts are abroad, and the institutions that they have these contracts with are institutions that funded the establishment or the construction of those plants. So they have long-term contracts with them. So whatever they produce, they have obligations to give back, meet up with the obligations, their contractual obligations with the people or organizations that funded the construction of these plants in country. Otherwise, Nigeria is self-sufficient in terms of LPG. Nigeria LNG produces LPG. ExxonMobil also produces LPG, all in Bonny Island. And the country will be awash if the products from these two plants are sent into the country. That's just with LPG alone, cooking gas. So we are supposed to be self-sufficient in terms of LPG, but we produce it locally in the country, we export it, then we go back and re-import it. After exporting, we'll go and buy it and re-import it into the country. That's what happens in that sector of the LPG. But here we're talking about petroleum products like PMS, which basically the average Nigerian, directly or indirectly, uses, and the prices have gone up because of the naira and dollar exchange rate imbroglio that we're facing right now. And it has affected literally every aspect of our national life. There's hardship in the country. There is tension everywhere. And these people have reached out to everybody that they were supposed to reach out to, asking them that, come, let's reason, come, let's talk over these issues. But nobody saw it necessary or deemed it fit to discuss with them or engage them or send some people to interface with them, some agencies to interface with them. None of that has happened. And now we're getting to this point where the country will eventually be grounded to a halt, unfortunately.
Okay, just before we let you go, please reiterate for us some of the requests that these people, these owners are making, the reasonability of it as briefly as you can, and how speedily a government can work on getting something done to at least get them not to go on strike.
Okay, it is two-pronged. It's a two-pronged, it's a two-edged sword. They're asking for increase in bridging cost. Bridging cost is when they lift products from either Warri or Lagos to other parts of the country, right? Then they have the local distribution, which is intercity, Lagos to Lagos. Now, the pricing templates that they use for the local and the bridging has been there for years. And because of the current realities, as a result of the increase in the price of petroleum products, they are requesting for a commensurate increase in the cost of their trucks. And of course, the products that, the diesel that they use in running these trucks. right? Because the price of diesel has also jumped up to 1,400 naira per liter. Okay, so they are asking for an increase. It's simple. They are asking for an increase in the rates for hiring of their tankers that does the distribution of petroleum products. Simple and short. That is what they are asking for.
All right. Thank you very much, Judge, for speaking with us.
Yes. Thank you.
Health stakeholders in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, have tasked citizens to be more vigilant on the health status of their children and ensure that the early detection of cases of child cancer. They say this will ensure the quick and compulsory treatment of children diagnosed, which can give them a high chance of survival. Some of them took to the streets of Abuja as part of efforts to mark the World Child Cancer Day and raise awareness on the need for early detection of child cancer in children. Amadine Uyi reports.
Child cancer has become more popular in recent years, with over 400,000 children between the ages of 0 to 19 diagnosed annually. The most common types of child cancers include leukemia, brain cancer, lymphoma, and solid tumors.
Cancer in children is widespread across the nations, across the world, and that is why we have World Cancer Day celebration, because it's a disease that cuts across the globe.
As the world marks the World Child Cancer Day, the Akanimo Cancer Foundation took to the streets of Abuja to raise awareness about child cancer.
Today, we are simply creating awareness about childhood cancer to tell the world that childhood cancer is a thing, it's real. Children can get cancer too.
They also expressed concern about misinformation on child cancer being peddled around.
There's a lot of misinformation about cancer. People think it's village people, it's juju, it's babalawo, it's everything. And it's only when it gets to the terminal stage that they finally pull themselves to the clinic.
We have medical reasons for causes of cancer. Cancer does not have anything to do with witches and witchcrafts, but you know that we believe that every physical thing has a spiritual origin.
For many Nigerians, the idea of a child diagnosed with cancer is unimaginable. This is because in this part of the world, it is usually attributed to superstitious beliefs or the handiwork of witches and wizards. However, available technology now makes detection of cancer in children possible. There are some here who believe that early detection is key because it can save the life of that child that has just recently been diagnosed with cancer.
The very first benefit of early detection is that the cancer can be contained within the organ where it started. So the thing about cancer is this: it starts from one place, and then what kills is that it spreads to other organs, especially vital organs of our body.
They urge parents to be more vigilant over their children so as to ensure that they detect any cases of child cancer.
All you need to do is pay attention, please, to those simple complaints of your children. Do not ignore them.
In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Staying with health matters, International Childhood Cancer Day, like we said, is a global collaborative campaign held every February 15 to raise awareness about childhood cancer and its challenges. This comes as veteran Nigerian broadcaster Bimbo Oloyede unveils plans to raise critical funds for cancer research and treatment in public hospitals.
It has one of the highest cancer mortality rates in the world. It has become a major public health crisis in Nigeria, with over 17,000 deaths and 102,000 new cases annually. Breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths in Nigeria. Liver cancer comes as second, while prostate cancer is the third, with late diagnosis and limited access to treatment, significantly impacting survival rates. Now, this highlights the urgent need for increased awareness campaigns, research, and healthcare resources to combat this growing challenge.
In Africa, the burden of mortality rate due to the terminal disease called cancer has risen significantly. According to articles published on Frontiers, cancer is now the fifth leading causes of death in Africa. Efforts and campaigns will aid in underscoring the urgent need to address the disparity in cancer care access and outcomes for patients served by public healthcare systems.
This campaign seeks to meet a need, an existing need in public hospitals. If we raise this, let me not say if, when we raise this money, we're going to be able to put some of it into cancer research and some of it into providing some equipment and accessories that will be accessible to all cancer patients when they go for treatment in public hospitals. I think investment in research is going to make a difference. You know, I know that it's a global problem, but it's also a local problem. So let's find local solutions to our local problem.
In Nigeria, cancer leads to over 72,000 deaths per annum. This number will increase in the coming years, given that there are 102,000 new cases of cancer every year, raising Nigeria's cancer burden significantly. With more cases and limited resources for early diagnosis, the healthcare system is now under the weight of this growing threat.
Cancer treatment is extremely expensive because almost everything is brought from outside. But I think that we need more eyes on the local health industry and probably a bit more collaboration between the local, what we like to call herbalists, but I would say local medicine and local and natural medicine and the imported medicine.
Anything that we observe that is different or strange or odd about our bodies, we should make inquiries.
The fight against cancer in Nigeria is multifaceted. While challenges persist, there could be encouraging signs of progress by addressing resource limitations, raising awareness, and fostering collaboration.
And that is all tonight. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the big stories. The Nigeria Labour Congress has declared a 2-day protest over rising cost of living. President Tinubu has met 36 governors over rising food prices, ruled out food importation. We also brought you news that oil tanker drivers have threatened strike over rising operational costs. Do send us your eyewitness reports. The number is on your screen. You can follow us on social media at News Central TV. We're live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind company when Nigeria Tonight lasted. I'm Felicity Ezewike.